When you looked at that opportunity to go to medical, what was most attractive to you about it?
I've always liked technology. I've always liked customers. I had considered myself pretty good at product management and things like that. And so it was a good way to combine a lot of different things I had done, even though I hadn't done them in that industry. It allowed me to combine kind of selling and marketing skills along with deep interest in technology and products. I remember in 1997, maybe the second quarter of 1997, I was at a CEC meeting, and one of the analysts that covered the company came to give a talk about the company. And she basically went through all the different businesses, and she didn't even mention medical as being germane to the way investors looked at GE. And I remember at the bar that night talking to Jack, and Jack saying, "You know what, Jeff, this is just, got a great business. Investors don't even think about it. We got to look at some adjacencies. We got to look at some businesses that we can acquire." And that really led to, getting back into patient monitoring, being more acquisitive vis-a-vis the things we did. And so I think it's just, healthcare is such a big segmented market. And I think the, ability and willingness to go out and do acquisitions, that was clearly number one. I'd say number two, Leon, would have been the turnaround in Europe. I laugh today, 10 years later, I go over and basically it's the same, more or less the same people in Europe, and now our business in Europe is as profitable as the business in the U.S. almost. And we would never have guessed that a decade ago. So that clearly was a big highlight. I'd say the third thing, hiring Omar Ishrak and Vishal Wanshu. These two guys, we had always been more or less a promote from within. And we had always whiffed in ultrasound and in healthcare information technology. We tried to take an MR guy, a good talent guy, move him or her into those jobs, and we never got any traction. And so we finally went out to the industries. We hired two talent guys. They're still with us today. And they built multi-billion-dollar franchises for us because they could, we could teach them the GE stuff, but they brought the industry stuff with them. And I think those two individuals made a massive difference from a standpoint of, how we look at the business. I'd say number four, multi-slice CT, was a big product launch. I think it's not that it was so different than, other product launches, but I think it showed that when you have a great product and you market it well, you can really blow out the impact that it's got broadly inside the company. I think that was a big one. And I would say the fifth one would have been Six Sigma and the impact it had on tube life and some of the key quality aspects of what we're doing. And I think those five things more or less happened during the time that I was there. We went out and hired a good business development person in Mike Jones. And Mike is still in the business today and has had a tremendous impact overall on the business. But I would say, Paul Mirabella was a tremendous continuity figure inside the company that, I developed a very close relationship with, and I think just was an exceptional, strong leader. Tom Dunham, who ran the service business, was a classic leader. And both those guys, I think, represent the best of what was GE, of guys who were learning, all the time, always doing the best. They both had massive impacts inside the company. I would say that some of the modality leaders that I worked with during the time there, I thought Vivek Paul was a fantastic talent. He ran the CT business when I was there. He did a fantastic job. Was an extremely talented individual. I would say that I did a lot of recruiting while I was there, and so we went out and found Mike. We let him hire a team, almost primarily of people outside the company who were talented individuals. I'll tell you an interesting story, Leon. So we recruited Omar, And at that time, our ultrasound business, we were number 7 in ultrasound. I used to go with Omar, and I was the CEO of the business, to recruit salespeople. We would go to recruit the Accuson salesperson in Los Angeles, and he would interview me. In other words, we'd say, hey, you ought to leave Accuson and come and join GE. And he said, well, your products stink. Why should I come and work with you? And I said, well, look, I'm committed. So he would interview me. I wouldn't interview him. And we built this business kind of person by person by person. And that's what Omar kind of brought. And then, Vishal we hired from AGFA at the time. And we got sued by AGFA. We ended up in the Wall Street Journal. They sued us for recruiting somebody and wouldn't let him come to work for us. He had to sit out for a month. And we just went out. Mike Jones, we recruited Mike from an investment bank on the West Coast. And so, adding these people from outside of GE Medical, I think really helped make us a better company, ultimately. We put Larry Johnston into Europe. This was an appliance guy. And everybody looked at us like, this is the dumbest thing you could ever do, is recruit. What's an appliance guy know about GE Medical? But he was a good leader. He was a guy that could motivate a team, could keep them focused, could relate well with customers. And, he did a fantastic job. So people make a huge difference. The first thing I would say, Leon, is I loved all my jobs at GE, and I would say that the people in GE, are the best people in the world. I love the people in the medical business. I thought that they were extremely hardworking. They were extremely smart. When I would sit and have a modality review with the CT team on Ryerson Road, and I would go down to bench engineers and people like that, it was a thrill to be around them. They were low ego, high on impact, cared about customers, cared about patients, cared about the company. And so, it just was an honor to be around these folks. And I would say in multi-slice CT, we've always had a good CT business. We've got a tradition of getting products out on time. In the case of multi-slice CT, we had Vivek Paul, who was the CT modality leader at that time. He had a real flair, not just for technology, but for marketing. We had a product launch at the Waldorf in New York City. We had Jack come. We invited 150 customers. They all came. And so I think it just showed us that great technology is great, but when you can put good technology with a good story, you do even better. And we had an integrated approach, and Paul was running the sales force, and Tom was running the service organization, Vivek was running CT, and we just blew the cover off the ball. And it was a high quality product that customers liked. It was new, and so I think it was just one of those things. But, I was just always so confident that the bench engineers, the individual contributors engineers, particularly in CT, were so buttoned up. You could trust what they did. And, like I said, it was just, it was a thrill to work with, all the people in the business, from administrative assistants to the salespeople in the field. There's something maybe about having a business headquartered in a place like Milwaukee, Midwestern town, stuff like that. People gave you more than a day's work for a day's pay, which is really fun.